everybody, and welcome back to the Girly Girl Bookworm. So today I have a currently reading for you. This is currently being filmed on Friday, May 8th. I know it's going to be a little while before you see this, but I thought before the stack got any crazier, and while I still remember my thoughts on the books, it would probably be a smart choice to film it now. So yeah, let's just jump right into what I have read recently. So the first book I have to talk about is Masterclass by Christina Dulcher. And this is a book that I pre-ordered because it came out in March, and it was one of those books that April. Yeah, it came out in April. And I knew that I just had to read it pretty relatively quickly after accumulating it. So I dived right into this at the end of April, and I finished it up at the beginning of May. This is a dystopian novel, which is something that I have honestly been craving. I've been craving fantasy, and I've been craving historical fiction. And in that fantasy realm, I've also been really craving dystopian. So in this book, we are following Elena, who is married, and she's got two children. And in this world, people are kind of set into hierarchies, and there's like the silver group, the green group, and the yellow group, kind of. And every month, you are kind of reassessed to which group you can be in. She is a teacher, and she teaches in the silver school, which is like the highest school you can be in. Her daughter is currently in a silver school with her, and then there's one of her other daughters is in the green school. And the yellow school is a school you do not want to go to. They pick you up at the beginning of the month, and you don't come back to see your family until you get out of this class, pretty much, which is very, very hard to do once you end up in a yellow school. And her husband is kind of one of the guys who is part of the education department, and he kind of helped create this system. And one day, Elena finds out that her daughter's Q, which is like their number, and you have to have like the number determines which school you're in or what kind of job you can have, etc. One day, one of her youngest daughters, her Q ends up tanking, and unfortunately, she gets put into a yellow school, which means she's being taken away from Elena. And Elena's at this point where she's starting to realize that she's not really happy with the way this system is run, and she wants to do anything she can do to get her daughter back. This book was so good. I gave it 4.5 stars. Probably, it came very close to being 5 stars. But there were just points where I just felt like it dragged a little bit. So this book is very slow. So don't go into this book expecting it to be a page turner. It really does not become a complete page turner until probably the ending-ish. Like when things start going down, that's when it really picks up pace, but it is a very slow read. The reason why I kind of docked it a 0.5 star is they keep talking about her grandmother, and her grandmother is very old, and she keeps trying to tell these long stories about her past and basically like the Germans, and when the Germans tried to do this and like create the ultimate race and things like that. And grandmother just was very boring, and I just did not care to listen to her stories. I just wanted to know what was going on in this current timeline. I did not care about what was going on in the past and how it related. It just didn't need it. Ultimately, though, I really, really enjoyed this. I thought it was a really cool take on dystopian as an adult, because obviously I'm used to Hunger Games and Divergent, but I haven't really read a dystopian that is in the adult genre, and this one did not disappoint me. I gave it 4.5 stars. Like I keep saying, it was really, really good. I highly recommend it. Just know that it is on the slower side, and you'll probably really enjoy it as well. After that, I was kind of reading 2 books at once. I was doing an audiobook, and I was doing a physical book. The audiobook that I was listening to was The Guest List by Lucy Foley, because actually I kind of started it in the middle of this one, so doesn't matter the order, but I was listening to this story because I was able to get it through Libro FM. If you don't know, I have it linked down below, but Libro FM is an amazing, amazing service. I think you pay like $14.99 a month for a book credit, and which I believe is cheaper than Audible. And the great thing is your credit goes to a local bookstore. You could either determine which local bookstore it goes to, or I believe like mine, because I don't know any local bookstores, it's just set to help any local bookstore. So that's a really awesome thing. And when you use the link, or I think even if you go there, I think you get your first audiobook for free. So I highly recommend you check it out. I really like the service. And I've used Hoopla in the past, which is from my library, and I have to say Libro FM's sorry, there was a hair flying. Libro FM's screen and the way you could like go through chapters and stuff, it feels a lot easier to use. Like when I use Hoopla, they just kind of give it to you in all one thing, and this one can like break it up into chapters and it saves your spot, and I just really like this app. So if you have not been using Libro FM, I highly recommend you give it a try and check it out. Enough about that. This book is amazing, especially on audiobook form. And if you know me, I'm not the biggest audiobook listener. I tend to zone out, or I forget that I'm listening to it and I miss things, and it doesn't always work out so well. But this one was phenomenal. We are following a bunch of different characters who are on this remote island off the coast of Ireland that are attending a wedding. And each perspective has its own voice, and because it takes place in Ireland, they've all got different accents, and it was just superb. It honestly felt like I was watching a movie when I was listening to it. And I forgot that I was like listening to a book, because it felt very dramatic, and like you could feel the atmosphere. It was a superb audiobook, but it was also a superb book in general. So we are following, like I said, all of these characters who are attending this wedding on a remote island. We know someone gets murdered, because obviously in the back it says like someone's a murderer, so we know someone's going to die. But we spent almost the entire book trying to figure out who's even dead. So like we're following all the different perspectives of the bride, the best man, the maid of honor, the plus one, which is somebody who is attending the wedding, she's his wife, and the wedding planner. And we're following them in the like past, but then we're following this like narrator voice who is telling you what's going on currently, like of them like finding the body. And it's so fun because you're trying to figure out who's dead. And because you don't necessarily know who's dead, everyone feels like a suspect, because you have no idea who could have done it, because you don't even know who's dead yet. And I just loved the way that was done, because it was actually done really well, because like that could be like, oh my god, I just want to know who dies now, because normally we're so used to thrillers telling you right off the bat like Johnny's dead, like, or Susie's dead, or like, but this one like you don't know who's dead. So it was really fun being like, I know someone's gonna die, so who's gonna die and who did it? And each chapter kind of ended on like a mini cliffhanger, and then you would end up going to another perspective, so then you had to like listen through the perspectives in order to get back to the other one that left off in a cliffhanger. So it was just really fun. The chapters end up getting really short, which made me like, I could not stop listening. I had to find out who did it and who was dead, and it was so much fun. I really enjoyed it. I ended up giving it 5 stars. I cannot wait till we read The Hunting Party. Still, I pre-ordered it and I still haven't read it, but it is what it is. Highly recommend this thriller. 5 out of 5 stars. So much fun. Then I did 2 buddy reads. So this was the first buddy read I did, and that was House of Salt and Sorrows by Erin A. Craig. And I read this one with Kendra. She put it in her May TBR, and I said to her, I was like, when you read that, like, let me know when you're reading it. I'll read it too, because I've had it on my shelf, and again, I've been craving fantasy. So she was like, do you want to read it tomorrow? And because I was just finishing masterclass, and I was like, sure, why not? So we ended up reading this one, and I got so sucked into this one. This is a retelling of The 12 Dancing Princesses, which is a Grimm fairy tale that I have always loved. When I was little, we did, for our like end of the year ballet recital, we did a show of The 12 Dancing Princesses. I was a tree, and I really badly wanted to be one of the princesses, but obviously I was like 9, so I was a tree. So I've always had a really soft spot for this story, and I've tried to read retellings of it in the past that I didn't love, but this one was so well done. We are following this family that live on this island, and they are kind of run by like this sea god, and they're, like I said, they're a family of 12 girls, and when we meet our main character, Annalie, 4 of her sisters are now dead, and people kind of believe that this family is now cursed. So they are very well not looked at well upon because they think this family is cursed. Annalie feels like there's a little bit more to the story, and at some point, just like the 12 Dancing Princesses fairy tale, they start going off dancing every night, and the king wants to know what's happening, because he doesn't know that they're going out dancing. And like I said, this one was such a good page turner. Again, this one also had such a great atmosphere where like you felt like you were on this coastal city. Like, I wish it had a map though, because it talks about like different kingdoms and there's no map, and I was like, but I want to know where they are, like I want to see them. So that's a one downfall, is that I wish this one had a map. But again, it felt very atmospheric. I was worried about it being confusing because we don't really know these kingdoms or these gods and things, but it wasn't confusing at all. I could not stop flying through these pages. We read 200 pages the first day and 200 pages the second day, and we were actually doing a really nice job of staying on pace. And then at one point, I just like threw everything out the window. I was like, I just need to finish this. I'm so sorry, because it hits a point where you just like, your jaw's on the floor and you're like, I need to know more, because it is like a fantasy, but it has this mystery element to it, and I highly, highly recommend you check this one out if you have not already. You know me, I'm not much of a fantasy reader, and this one blew me out of the water. So good. So, as you can tell, my May started off very amazingly, and then I did a buddy read with Amber, and it tanked a little bit. So Amber and I finally read The Sundown Motel by Simone St. James. If you don't follow her on Instagram, she is Amber Eats Books. I believe she used to have a YouTube channel. I don't think she's been uploading recently, but we have had a really good friendship for a while now, and we've been talking about reading this book for what feels like forever. We were supposed to read it in February, and then we were like, let's read it when you get back from Disney. She got back from Disney, and then coronavirus hit, and life just got thrown around. So she was like, hey, do you want a buddy read it finally? And I said, sure, let's go for it. And if you know, I did not really like The Broken Girls. So I was kind of hesitant and nervous about going into this one because I did not love that one. So I thought I was not going to love this one. And this one, I had a difficult time with. I'm not going to lie. I love the atmosphere in this one. This one takes place in 2 parallel storylines. We're following 1982 and 2017. In 1982, we're following Vivian, and she is working at, she like leaves home. She wants to go to the city to become an actress. She ends up in Fell, New York, and ends up working at this Sundown Motel, which is a very creepy hotel. And she one day disappears, and then we're following in 2017, we're following her niece, Carly. Yeah, Carly. And Carly wants to know what happened to her aunt. So she ends up going to Fell, New York, because she feels like she's going to be able to find out what happened to her aunt. This hotel is the perfect setting, especially with this town. It's creepy. It's scary. I never want to stay in a motel ever again. The setting made this book. I think I really liked this one more than Broken Girls, because with Broken Girls, I did not understand why the main character wanted to look into the past, because her sister had gotten murdered, but they had already put the guy away in jail. So it felt like there was closure there. Why is she looking into it? But this one, there was never closure. They never found Vivian. Nobody ever went to jail. Nothing ever ended up happening. So I was like, I believe this story a lot more than I believed Broken Girls. And it was a lot more readable. But it was slow, just like Broken Girls. It had like 10 mysteries, just like Broken Girls. For me, I don't mind a thriller having multiple things that you're trying to figure out, because that kind of helps to add to the confusion a little bit. But at one point I was texting my friend, I was like, there's like 10 murders. Like, do I need to keep track of all of them? And she was like, yeah, you do. And I was like, I don't wanna. I like my thrillers to be a little bit more simplistic, because when there's too much going on, it gets very convoluted and very confusing. And I did say at one point, when I was on like page 38, I said to Amber, I said, this better not happen or I'm going to be really upset. And I got to the ending. And it's what happened. So I was a bit let down by the ending. And then when we got to the ending, after that reveal happened, some other stuff just kept getting brought up that just didn't feel like it needed to be added to the story. It just felt like it was being added to, like, be added. And the last sentence of the book just, it made the book more comical than anything. And I was like, that's not the point of this book. So, unfortunately, I didn't love it like everybody else did. I see why everybody else loved it, but for me, it just didn't work. And I gave it 3.5 stars. For the most part, I was feeling like it was going to be a 3-star read, but I was like, you know what? I'm liking it better than Broken Girls, so I can't give it the same rating as Broken Girls. And I wanted the ending to knock it out of the park. If the ending surprised me and shocked me, I would have given it 4 stars. But because the ending was predictable and I guessed it on page 38, I had to give it 3.5. But it was still a good time. I still enjoyed reading it with Amber. We still had a really fun time discussing this book. It just, me and her, like me and Simone St. James just don't click. The book I'm currently reading is City of Girls by Elizabeth Gilbert. I have about 100 pages left, about 100 pages left. I have a feeling that this is probably going to be a 3.5 star read for me as well. It just wasn't what I was expecting. This one is following a woman named Vivian. We are following her as an 89-year-old woman telling a story about her past to a woman named Angela. We don't know how Angela's related to her at all. But Angela's dad, like, wants to know about her relationship with her dad. And I guess she's, like, going to tell the story about what her dad means to her. But I have no idea who her dad still is. So at this point, I don't get the point of the story. But we flash back to 1940 when she gets kicked out of Vassar and she ends up moving to New York and she's living with her aunt in this theater. And the theater life and that time period, I wanted more historical fiction elements out of this. And we'll talk more about it when I fully review it, but I thought I was going to get more out of this than I am. Still an interesting read. Still, I love the writing style of this book, but again, we'll talk more when I finally finish it. Maybe they'll come together and be a 4-star read. You never know. It could surprise me. So yeah, those are the books that I have been currently reading. What have you been currently reading? Let me know down below, and I will see you guys really soon. Bye, everybody.